Hey, friend. Welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. I am your host and fellow worthy warrior, Danielle Damrell. On this show, we are creating space for genuine connection by unifying women of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences. So grab your favorite drink and get ready to listen as we take a deep dive into our stories, making sure to honor and protect them in the process. We will also uncover the threads of creative processing that have already played a part in each of our lives. When we know how to utilize this as a skill, we can continue growing into the joy-filled, triumphant women we are created to be. You are created worthy. Hello, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. Today, I am joined by another worthy warrior, Emily Kim. Emily is a software engineer turned brand photographer and videographer. Since 2014, Emily has built a brand photography business that offers clients an unparalleled experience with the Sunlight Space, a creative lifestyle studio for rent in Silicon Valley. Now, Emily is combining her expertise from working at a Fortune 10 company with her years of experience as a small business owner. Emily offers creative business owners a triple threat: profitable personal brand and business foundations, brand photo and video, and system strategy. Emily and I had the privilege of meeting and working together at the end of last year while at an event, and she was actually the one who snapped the photo of me that is now the cover of this podcast. Her kindness, grace, and determination was apparent immediately, and it is such an honor to have her here today. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today on the Created Worthy podcast. I can't wait to hear more about your real life story.
Of course. Thank you for having me. What a lovely introduction. Oh my goodness.
I'm so glad that you're here. Just to start, I would love for you to take us back to where you started off in life. Like, where are you from? What was life like for you growing up?
Totally. So I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, which doesn't, I know that I get that a lot, that reaction.
Nashville is like my soul city. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
No.
That's like where my spiritual journey really began. And it's like, I'm constantly looking for ways to move back there.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Yeah. So all of my close friends and like friends from college, friends from high school all still live in or around Nashville within a 2-hour drive. So I'm also always trying to figure out how to move back there. But yeah, I went to school in, grew up in Nashville, went to school at Alabama, of all places, University of
Wow.
Roll Tide. And then I got a job at Apple out of college, which is how I landed in Silicon Valley. So I've been here since then, worked at Apple for 3 years, quit my job to run my photography business after 3 years, almost on the dot. And that brings us to the present.
That was the quickest childhood overview I've ever heard. I love it. So succinct. So what did you do when you worked at Apple?
So I went to school to get a degree in computer science, and then I also stayed an extra year. I did like this 4+1 program, and also got my MBA. So I went to school, got a degree in computer science, and then went to Apple to work as a software engineer.
Okay,
And that's what I did: programmer, writing code.
perfect. Well, I'm sure that was pretty complex. It's Apple. I would really like for you to take us a little bit more into your childhood. Do you have any siblings? And where do you fall in that lineup, if you do?
Totally. I have a younger brother. I am like 4.5 years older than he is. Yeah, I mean, we grew up in the same place for the whole 18 years, which was really great, but it was such a blessing. And yeah, I mean, for us, we're a lot closer now than we were when we were younger, now that we're both adults and can communicate as such.
Right. I know adult
Yeah.
sibling relationships are like so wild because you really do get to choose the relationship you have with your sibling rather than it
Hmm.
just being like, I grew up with them. I don't know. It's my little brother.
Hmm. Right, right. It's
Yeah.
totally different.
Yes. But it's actually really fun too. I don't know about your relationship with your brother, but I think like having that ability to be like, okay, I know who you were as a child, like I grew up with you, but now like watching them, I'm the youngest, so like for me it was opposite, but watching them like grow up, I assume it has been a process and experience in itself. In
Hmm.
just like having that relationship that hopefully becomes a friendship.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It was, I remember when, like, as soon as he graduated high school, I thought to myself, is he ever going to talk to me again? Like, are we ever, is he going to want to talk to me? Luckily, he does. So
That's
that's
good.
good. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. Snaps for Emily. You must have been a really good sister because, okay,
Questionable,
a
but
sister.
I was there. Yeah.
Well, how do you feel like where you grew up, how you grew up, how do you feel like that affected who you have become?
Right. That's a really good question. I have always felt a little bit contrarian. I don't know. I don't know what that means really, but sometimes I just find myself going against the grain just because. So when I did not really go to Alabama by choice. That was not my top school. That is not where I wanted to be. And growing up as an Asian American in the South, in hindsight, I can say that it was fine. I didn't, there wasn't anything extremely traumatic. There was racism, of course. I dealt with that. I was one of maybe 5, 8 Asian people at my school. And just the thought of going to Alabama, I was just like, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, I want to
Right.
change it. It's fine. I wasn't like in a desperate need to get out or anything, but I really wanted to go up north or to the West Coast or just a bigger city. But the reason I ended up going to Alabama was because I got a scholarship. So
Okay.
it was the
Yeah.
most cost effective option. And just looking at it on a paper, I mean, both of my parents immigrated here from Vietnam. So looking over that, looking over all of the acceptance letters and scholarships and comparing numbers, they were just like, why would you choose anywhere else? Why would you pay money when you have
Right.
the option to not pay money?
Right.
So that's why I ended up there. And I didn't want to be there. I was really unhappy the first year there because it took me a while to find my people. Luckily, my best friend growing up ended up going to Alabama too. So we had each other and we're still friends today. She was my maid of honor. So that was really helpful having her there because the first year it was just
Yeah.
very,
Finding
very
your
rough.
space, finding your place. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you grew up with two immigrant parents.
Mm-hmm.
How was that? And especially, I feel like in the South, I know that a lot of people in Nashville would be like, it's not the South. But,
Yeah.
it's like border it's in my opinion from Colorado, it's the South. But how
Mm-hmm.
was that for you growing up and having parents that didn't grow up here?
It was interesting. Again, I feel like now that I'm so far removed from it, I can look at it and I'm very grateful for how I grew up because it's crazy to think my dad, he came to America, he doesn't even know really when his birthday is, like officially. So
What?
around 22, 23, we think. And to think that he literally came to America on a boat got surrounded by pirates, and then they were stuck on an island, and
Are you serious?
yeah, it's wild. Um, a United Nations helicopter found them on the island and brought them to the States. So to think that that is how he came here, and here I am complaining about like my lattes in the morning. It's just, it's crazy to
But
me.
we
He
don't
doesn't,
compare pain. That's
we don't.
yes. But I'm
Yeah.
sure that it did kind of give him a different appreciation for this country, is
Oh, of
in that like
course.
he was literally rescued.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then he did your mom come with him? Like was she
No, so they actually met here. My mom
okay.
came to America when she was much younger, so she had a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Neither of them really like to talk about it, so I don't press.
Yeah.
But that's
Fair.
about, yeah, as much as I
That's
know of
yeah,
what
that's a lot
went
though.
down. Yeah, it is a lot. It's
Yes.
quite a lot. Yeah. So it's just funny now because now, my dad he works a good job. He's a database administrator at like not agriculture, one of those how do I explain? It's Tractor Supply, which
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
just like a very southern,
Yeah. He has
like,
a stable southern job.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly, exactly. So it's crazy to think, but one of the things that really has it hasn't really affected me, but something that I think about a lot as an adult is how I am not bilingual and probably should be, because when I was really young at home, we would speak Vietnamese and I could speak it, and it was like English, Vietnamese, flip back and forth. Then I went to school when I was 5 years old, in kindergarten,
Yeah.
and I remember being made fun of for speaking Vietnamese. And I came home and was really, 5-year-old upset about it. Like, oh, I want to speak English only. And that was that. And now I'm not bilingual.
You made your decision at 5 years old. You're like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I really regret it. And I wish my parents had pushed me harder and been like, no, 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 don't listen to these children. They don't know anything.
Right. Right.
But,
But I'm sure their perspective of like, again, just being here, having a safe
mhm.
place to raise their children was probably very much like, I want to honor your decisions. I want to make sure that you feel like you're equipped and safe. And maybe they didn't have those words, but like to them, it was probably way more important that you had a strong work ethic and that you were going to go forward and you were going to do the things that um, this life here presented you, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I mean, that's scary. I'm thinking you immigrated here from a different country. You've never raised kids, let alone in a different country. Your kid comes home crying because someone made fun of them. Maybe they shouldn't learn that language. So I know that now, but I remember being really mad about it for a
Yeah,
while.
no, I'm sure we all think back to things that are like, dang, I should have done that. Like,
Hmm.
why did I make that decision? But okay, so going forward a little bit, so you graduated high school, you went to college in Kentucky, then you moved to Silicon Valley, you start working at Apple, and I believe you are married. Am I correct?
Yes,
So at what
yes.
point did you meet your partner?
So we met well, we've known of each other for a little bit longer, but we met and started dating senior year of college.
Okay,
So
so you met him
yeah,
there.
yeah, we met in school, and then hit it off pretty much immediately, and then moved out to California together.
Wow. Okay, so you guys
Hmm.
have done like pretty much all of your adult life together then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
I
much.
mean, I know college is adult life, but you know what I
Eh,
mean.
not pseudo adult
Yeah,
life.
it's the transition phase.
Right.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about like your first date.
Oh my gosh. Okay, our first date I remember was so awkward because we had already spent time together. We really met each other through a mutual friend, so we hit it off actually in the summer. I and my roommate at my internship, we were friends from college. We're going to visit another friend from college, and they were roommates, my husband and said friend. So that's when we hung out, we hit it off, and then we came back to school. We are like, okay, we're gonna go on a date. And the only thing I can remember is just drinking so much water because that's my defense mechanism. I just kept chugging water because whenever it was quiet, I just went for it. And I had to go to the bathroom so badly, like several times, because I was just downing water. And that
The
is
things we
seriously,
do, right?
yeah, that's all I can remember. He took me to an Italian restaurant because I had mentioned it was my favorite restaurant in town, which is
Yeah,
super cute.
that is super cute.
Yeah.
That is so fun. So at what point did he pop the question?
So we started dating 2016. He popped the question September of 2020. So peak pandemic over here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you're in
Hmm.
California, so yeah, peak pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. Yeah, we were supposed to get engaged May of 2020 because we had originally planned a trip to Hawaii. He didn't tell me like this is when I'm going to propose, but I had a feeling, and then afterwards we talked about it, and he said, he had a beautiful dinner planned, and it was going to be on the beach, and he was going to get a photographer. Isn't that so thoughtful?
So thoughtful.
Yeah, but then what happened, and
Yeah.
we postponed. We ended up going to Hawaii for our honeymoon though, so the trip did not
Okay.
go
So
to
yeah,
waste.
how did he do it? How did he end up doing
Um,
it?
it was really sweet. It was, oh my gosh, thinking back on it, we were grumpy, of course, because we'd been inside for months at this point, and we decided, okay, now it's acceptable to go places. So we were planning on going to Santa Cruz for a weekend and just getting out of the apartment, just getting some nature, fresh air. And that morning, I don't know why, I was just grumpy, probably, for being stuck inside. And
Hmm.
I thought for whatever reason, we were on a timeline. We were on no such timeline. We didn't have to be anywhere. We didn't have to meet anybody. But I was trying to get us out of the house. So I was being a little grumpy. I hadn't had my coffee yet. And I wanted to drive to Dunkin' Donuts, which was out of the way to where we were going. If you know my husband, he doesn't like to be inefficient. So me even asking to go out of the way, I was like, okay, he's probably going to suggest going somewhere on the way, which is very reasonable because Dunkin' isn't like some coffee to drive out of the way for. I just wanted it really badly.
Yeah, a girl's got to have her donuts and her
Exactly.
coffee.
Exactly. So, for whatever reason, I was being a little grumpy, and he was just being very, very nice to me. At that point, I was like, "You should have called me out by now." Like something. Why I've been rude this morning.
Yeah, I'm
But
kind
he
of
was
being a
being very
bee.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
he very accommodating. And then I honestly had no idea what was happening. We got our little lawn chairs. We went to sit on the beach. And I actually have a video. He doesn't let me share it, but I have this video where I was going to stitch together just a little short clip for us. I was really into making home videos because what else are you going to do stuck at home all day?
Right.
And there's this video I'm panning across the beach and he's breathing so hard and I didn't realize it until after watching it again. And I said hey on the video and he's just like, oh hi, and is so nervous. So after I took that video, he started talking. He was like, hey, like, can I talk to you? And I immediately was like, oh my god, he's gonna break up with me. I've been
I
so
would think the
mean
same. That
today.
can I talk to you? Yeah, I'm like, no, actually, no.
Yeah, so I was being a little irrational, but I was also on edge because I knew I had been not the greatest that morning. But then yeah, he just started talking and got down on one knee, proposed on the beach. It was very cute. I was not cute. I like hadn't washed my hair. I was in a windbreaker. It was so windy. My hair was all over the place, no makeup, nothing. So I was shook,
You're like,
to
at
say the
least
least.
he tried. But like in Hawaii, like there's some effort
Exactly.
there. So like there's a ring.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was there,
Exactly.
which is the most important part, right?
Exactly. He was there. And I'm not like particular about these kinds of things. So the
Right.
fact that there
But
wasn't
you are getting
like
engaged. So like of course it's gonna be in your mind.
right, right, exactly. So honestly, it was perfect. I'm glad it happened the way it did. Would it have been nice to do in Hawaii? Yes, but totally out of our control.
Yeah. I mean, there's not that many people who can say that they got engaged in the peak of a pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a funny
Yeah.
story because I have that video and the whole Duncan story.
Yes.
It's yeah,
I
it's
love it. No,
amazing.
well, thank you so much for sharing that. So,
Mhm.
going into the career phase of this conversation. So, you were at Apple, you left Apple. Did you know that you were going to go into photography? Explain that pivot for us.
I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur of sorts. When I graduated college, my vision of that was going into tech and being a tech startup person. That's just what I did. That was my identity throughout school. I was like, I am going to be a CTO, CEO of a tech startup. And then while I was getting my MBA, so that extra year at school, I actually didn't have a scholarship for that year. So I needed a way to make money. And I always had a camera with me. I just was that person. And I thought to myself, all right, I've had some friends ask to do portraits for various reasons. Why don't I start taking graduation photos to make extra money? So that's what I did. And then I moved out to California, and Stephen had already started, my husband, he had already started working, but I took some time off. I said, okay, I have got about 2 months. I'm just going to sit around because I really had no break for 3 whole years. It was school, summer classes, internship, school, summer classes, internship all the time. So I just needed to reset. Then I got bored after a month of sitting around doing nothing. And there's a bunch of schools around here. We have Stanford, San Jose State, Santa Clara. And so I just started doing grad photos again on the side just for fun. So I kept doing that while I started working at Apple. And it just kind of slowly evolved over time. I was doing graduates and then I started doing more lifestyle work. And then my first branding client, she found me on Instagram. She's really cool. Shout out to Peggy. She's a jewelry designer and found me on Instagram and said, "Hey, will you take photos of me wearing my jewelry? Need I need photos. It's too hard for me to do it of myself to take photos of me." So that's how the branding
Yeah.
situation started. And it was really the perfect blend of all of my interests and skills. So entrepreneurship, something visually creative. It just really clicked with me. Then I was like, oh, I can take photos for businesses. This is great. I love doing this. So once I had a few branding clients under my belt, I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue. And it also opened my eyes that it was a possibility to work for myself and not necessarily be on a tech, like be part of a tech startup. I thought that was the only path, get VCs,
Right.
get investors, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't realize I could have just not do any of that and
Yeah.
work for myself until I had my first couple of branding clients.
Wow. Okay. So when you got those branding clients, how long was it until you were like, okay, now I have my experience in the tech world. I have my degree and, my professional knowledge in tech. I have photography, which is a big creative outlet. Now I'm doing branding photos, which is an into entrepreneurship in an all new way. And then you pivot, or not pivot, but you're still doing photo and video, but then you start doing more branding and brand strategy. How did that come into the picture?
Yeah, so that is a more recent development. So since I have been running my business, I started doing brand specific work in 2018 and then quit my job three, yeah, about 3 years later, so middle of 2021. And since then, I would say it's been a pretty quick transition to build the business that I have now, which I'm very grateful for and very proud of. And over time, I've had other photographers reach out to me and just ask me questions here and there, like, hey, your website looks great. How did you do this? And just ask me how I have built it as quickly as I did. And in doing that, I've learned that I really, really like talking about business to other people. Something that I say a lot is that, other people's hobby is photography and then it turns into a business. My hobby is making a business and I just use photography as the outlet. I've always
Yeah.
been entrepreneurial. I had an Etsy shop, like an Etsy store when I was in high school and have always
Wow.
been doing this kind of stuff. So once people started asking me, how do I do this? Can you help me out on this? It just kind of flowed naturally. And I really love
Yeah.
doing it. I love, 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 love helping other people make money. That's why I also love doing brand photography because the
Yeah.
photos help them make money. Because it just gives people freedom that
Yeah.
they're looking for. And yeah, that's why I love doing it so much.
I love that. So, obviously, networking is a huge part of building a business as well. And I met you through a networking group. What networking methods have worked for you in growing your business?
When I first moved to the Bay Area, I got connected with a group of local photographers just by searching on Facebook for Facebook groups. I looked for San Francisco photographers, San Jose photographers, and the group that I landed in is called Better Together San Jose. So that was my first foray into creative networking was Facebook groups, and I'm still super connected with all of them. We actually had a meeting yesterday, so that was really fun. Facebook groups has been super great. Instagram has been really great. I've met some of my closest friends through Instagram just by DMing people and
Yeah.
asking, do you want to get coffee? Actually, I didn't do it. Rather, people do that to me, and I say yes. I'm a little too scared to do that. Um,
But you said yes.
but I do, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
said yes. Instagram, and then just yeah, and then connecting with those people just
Right.
spreads the network out even more. But it's crazy how connecting Instagram can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And I think that, there's good and bad to everything in this, literally everything in this world. And a lot of people right now, I think, are talking about the negative effects of social media and maybe mental health wise, like there's a lot of valid research out there. But when it comes to specifically growing a business, whatever platform it's on, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Some people I think still use Clubhouse, different social media outlets. Really what makes it successful is being intentional with building your network, right? And making those connections and viewing them more than just like potential clients or prospecting collaborations. It's really like, I want to connect with you as a human being, and then those connections deepen, and then you get to meet more people in that network and grow your network that way. That's really, I think, what I've done as an entrepreneur as well, is just like, okay, I'm going to say yes to one opportunity. I'm going to be intentional about getting in groups where, one, I'm inspired, but two, there's a healthy expectation that I'm going to continue growing, right? And I think that's where we get the skills and the resources and the ability and the motivation and determination to really take action on those things and staying involved in whatever network, whether even if your network is small and it's just you and another friend who you met on Instagram who's also building a business, and just encouraging, being intentional about that, having virtual coffee dates, and like talking about your systems and talking about, the business foundations really, and just really getting to know people and their business as a personal brand as well, has been really helpful, I think, in just the whole realm of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's all about your purpose and getting on Instagram. So I try not
Right.
to get on to scroll,
Yeah.
but yeah, getting
Boundaries,
on.
boundaries for sure. And you have to be intentional about that, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, right? Like, truly, honestly, we're in a world that, one, is full of resources, but also is full of noise. There's a lot of noise out there, and there's nobody else who can block you from that noise. If you decide to get on
Hmm.
Instagram and start scrolling and then find yourself comparing, it's up to you to shut down the app. It's up to you to determine what your boundaries need to be so that you can protect your mind, your heart, your soul, and that all of that is involved in living a good life. Okay, so I would love to close up this career section of the conversation with knowing what's your top strategy for success, which I think probably maybe we scale back even more and say, what is success to you?
That's a great question. Success to me is being able to live the life that I want on my terms without having to worry about finances. That,
Okay.
and just being, thinking even bigger picture. I think a popular question that people do, when they're doing these exercises is I think it's called like the front porch exercise or something. When you're 90 years old and you're sitting in your rocking chair on your front porch, what do you wish you've accomplished? What would make you feel happy and fulfilled? And for me, that is having a family, having kids, having grandkids. So everything that I do, I'm doing with that in mind. I don't have kids yet. I'm
Right.
not, we're not close to being parents, but that is what I
But you have
feel
your
that
end
I'm.
goal in mind,
Mhm,
because
exactly.
success really, like, financial stability is a part of being able to raise a happy, healthy family so that you're not
Exactly.
constantly stressed out about how you're going to provide for them. And instead, you can really enjoy your life together. So, yeah, I really love that you're like, it is to be free and to have financial freedom and to be able to do what I want to do, but for the purpose of supporting the life that I really feel called to live.
Exactly.
So, what would be your top strategy right now in this season? And of course, our strategies change as we grow and evolve. But in this season, what is your top strategy for success?
Something that I have been doing the last few months is changing the way I, not goal set, but task manage and time manage. So every morning, are you familiar with the Eisenhower matrix?
I think I've heard of it, but I cannot remember. So tell us.
Okay. I was recently introduced to this tool. The Eisenhower matrix is where the first thing you do is brain dump everything you have to do, everything that comes to mind, brain dump it. And then you mark each task as either important or not important, and then urgent or not urgent. So anything that is marked important and urgent, you do now. If it's important but not urgent, you schedule it. If it's not important but it's urgent, you delegate it. And then if it's not important or it's not urgent, you delete it. So that
I
has
love
really
that.
helped me
So
manage.
it's still that delegate, what is it? Automate, delegate, delete.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That same principle, just viewing it in a different way. The matrix really helps me,
Yeah.
right? Because if everything adds up and important and urgent, you're doing something wrong. Like you are
Right.
not prioritizing
Well,
correctly.
it's sometimes really hard to categorize those
It
things. And I think
is.
like task dumping, is that a thing?
I
We're
think
making
so.
it a thing.
Yeah.
Brain dumping all of the tasks that you have. Um, and then assigning them to these categories. Man, that seems so helpful. I am going to find a resource for that so that we can link it in the show notes. Cause like I would love to go on a rabbit hole and really get into that. That would be really helpful for me, even personally. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my current strategy. And then sometimes I get stressed out when I do that. If I'm still stressed out, then I just journal. I do morning pages from the Artist's Way, if you're familiar with that, which is you just write for 3 pages straight. It doesn't matter what you write, you just write and get it on paper. Because eventually, if you do that enough times, you really just clear your
Yeah.
brain and clear whatever buzz was going on. You just get it on paper,
Right.
even if you're writing, I don't know what to write, over and over and over again, eventually whatever's
Something
bothering
comes
you
up.
is going to come out. Yeah.
I freaking love that you brought that up. And I actually think that's a great transition into creative processing because that's essentially what creative processing is. I don't know. Have I shared with you my definition of creative processing?
Yes, I've seen it about, but share it again, share it with the
Okay.
class.
So, creative processing is a tool that we can all use to activate our creative minds to process through a certain intention. So, I teach this by using a certain prompt. So, the purpose of enter your creative outlet, I always recommend starting with writing because I believe it's the gateway to our subconscious, is to process whatever your certain intention is. So, the purpose of enter your creative outlet is to process, enter your intention. So, you specifically, you just mentioned journaling, but you also said anything crafty, yarn, crafts, painting, making anything with your hands. And so for you, an example of like engaging in creative processing with intention, which always my favorite part about creative processing is that it pairs really well with pretty much any other tool as well, or concept or thought or process. So like with the artist way, you have a time limit, right? You're sitting down, you're setting a certain amount of time aside to just write to bring clarity, which is exactly what creative processing is. And that's also why I say everyone already does this in different ways. It's the act of pairing it with an intention that brings the transformation that we're really seeking and the clarity and all of that. But for you specifically, a prompt just to like narrow in on creative processing as a skill or a tool would be the purpose of painting or writing is to process gaining clarity into my next steps in business. So maybe that writing for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, however long you're going to write, brings you that clarity on the one next step, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
what I love too is that we can use it not just in business, but in our lives. I know a lot of times we get stuck in this loop of like just repeating the stories that we tell ourselves. And our brains are actually wired to do that. Our brains are wired to enable us and
Mm.
to repeat those patterns. If we have a thought pattern that we are stuck in, our brains are going to, until we do something to change and break that and tell ourselves really we're wrong, we need to do something differently to break that process, our brains are going to keep confirming our biases. That's confirmation bias summed up. So yeah, that I think is why I've become so passionate about creative processing is because I'm like, look, we can all do it. And sometimes what is revealed by by doing creative processing or just having a term is that we know that we're now growing, right? We have a tangible action that we can do. And for me, that was important because I know a lot of coping skills. I've been in therapy for majority of my life at this point. And the skills were great, like I to know them, but I wanted something that was like tangible. And for me, creating is always a tangible action. And I've learned that like engage it's the act of creating. So everybody has creative mind, whether you consider yourself creative or not. Our
Hmm.
creativity just looks a little bit differently. So for some people, and probably partially for you as well, um, creating systems is engaging your creative mind. So
It
pairing
is.
your creative mind and the way that you create with a certain intention is going to help you to get clarity, to experience joy, to really truly experience peace and the things that we're ultimately searching for. Um, so that's my soapbox.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I love tangible things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Give us some tangible actions to do, because that's where I get stuck a lot of times. And I think a lot of people do is like, okay, I know, I know what the problem is. And I know that there's a solution to the problem, but I can't get to the solution. Like there's something that, like, maybe I need to break something down, maybe there's a block there or something, but that's what a tool is a bridge to get you to the solution. So
Hmm.
it's it's definitely been something that I just continue to learn about. And actually tonight I'm hosting a private creative processing workshop where we're processing relationships, which I'm super excited about. And I'm teaching for the first 15 to 20 minutes about relationships, what a healthy relationship is, how we communicate and set ourselves up for healthy relationships, but also how to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. And
Mm,
it's through the intention of tonight. So we have 3 different prompts, but the intention is, the purpose of writing is to process relationships, period. Simple. And then the tangible action that comes from that are the prompts that I'm giving them. So it's like
hmm.
a guided session in which we can really dive deep into this thing that seems so simple. Like, we all have relationships, whether it's with your partner, with your child, with your mom, with your dad, with your grandparents, or with yourself. We function and are created for connection. And essentially, relationships and connection are the same thing. So processing that brings a whole new level of clarity, because the quality of our relationships a lot of times is a reflection of the quality of our lives.
That's so good. Wow, that's a great sound bit right there.
Thank you. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
turn it into a reel one day. One day.
That's so true. Oh my gosh.
And if
Hmm.
journaling is what works for you, then like continue diving into that. I would never discourage anyone from doing what they like. When you find something that works and helps bring you clarity, do that thing. Look, no matter where you're at in life, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a mom, whether you are really, really struggling. I know I have quite a few friends right now who are walking through some really, really hard things. Like, there are things that we can do to get to break out of the cycle of toxicity that we a lot of
Mm,
times put ourselves in. And in my free creative processing workshop that I host every month, I talk about how suffering is, there's 2 arrows of suffering. This is a Buddhist belief, but it's so perfect and it's so
hmm.
true. The first arrow of suffering has everything to do, or is all about the things that we can't control. A loved one dies of cancer. The real estate market crashes, or we go through a recession, things we cannot control. But the
Hmm.
second arrow of suffering, which is often the most painful one, is the one that we shoot at ourselves. And it comes from the story we tell ourselves about the traumatic event that happened. So if a loved one
Mm,
dies of cancer, it would be that story of, I should have told them to go to the doctor sooner. I should have spent more time with them. And that's what actually causes us the deep pain, and gets us into that cycle of like, I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I can't get out of this. I'm a bad person. And so we have to stop doing that. We have to stop shooting ourselves with that second arrow. And we stop doing that by pouring into ourselves in ways that we might not want to do. Like, I'm
yeah.
sure there are, when you think about journaling, a lot of times you meet that with resistance.
Yeah, I do. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And resistance, like pushing past resistance, is where freedom is found. That's where peace is found. And there's a quote by Stephen Pressfield that says, the more important an activity is to your soul's evolution, the more resistance you will feel to it.
That's so true.
The more fear you will feel. Like, all of the feelings that keep us from making that one step forward are because that step forward is calling us into what we actually want and desire. And so when we
Mm,
can realize that, and we can make that connection of like, okay, when I feel this, that actually is confirmation that I do need to do this, right? That's where we lean into discernment as well.
mm,
Then it kind of empowers you to push past resistance and continue doing the things that make you uncomfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes. Oh, And it's muscle memory, right? Like
Yeah.
when you get into a routine, it's like going to the gym. What if you go to the gym consistently and then you stop going for a week? It's like, ugh, do I really need to do that? It's so
Right.
hard to get back into the rhythm.
Oh, I
Once you're
know.
doing it, it's like, oh, I can do this. I feel so much better. My brain feels so much better. All of the things that are like ultimately what we go to the gym for in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would love for you to just talk to us a little bit about what's coming up next for you in your life and business.
Absolutely. Well, I just started a new community on Facebook. Is this
Yes, of course.
yeah,
I will
good.
link it in the bio or in
Okay.
the show notes.
Yeah. So it's in line with what I've been doing kind of privately with other business owners, just mentoring and working through, the trials of running a business. But the new Facebook community is called Profitable Creatives because something that I hear a lot, just chatter on online and when I talk to people, there's a lot of doubt that you can run a creative business profitably. I face it when I tell people, I mean, can you imagine going from being a software engineer to a photographer? Everybody thinks you're crazy. Everybody thinks I'm actually crazy. But I'm not. It's possible and very doable. You just have to have the right, like you said, the right tools to move you forward. You have to know the tools, the resources that you need to have to run that creative business profitably. And I also feel like it's hard to sift through all of the noise. So in Profitable Creatives, my goal is to deliver the tangible resources and tools that people need to run a creative business profitably, whether you're a photographer or a designer or whatever your passion may be. That is my dream. I just want as many people as possible to know that they don't have to work a job. That doesn't have to be a side thing. If you want it to be your full time thing, if that's what you want to do in life, it's possible. No matter what all of these other people say about
Yeah.
not, you can never do that, you can't possibly make as much
Yeah.
money, blah blah blah,
Starving
whatever.
artists.
Yeah, the starving artist mentality is canceled. That's in my book. We're not about it, and that's what Profitable Creatives is about. So that's what I have coming up. I will be there once a week ish doing some live trainings, and yeah, love to hang out with people in there.
I love that. And where can listeners find or connect with you
Yes.
other
So
than your
on
Facebook group?
Yes, on Instagram is probably the best place. I am at emilykim.co, so emilykim.co. That's also my new website as well, emilykim.co. And then for more photography, videography stuff, that's at emilykimphotography.com.
Perfect. Well, I am so grateful to have spent some time with you here today and for your courage to share your story, your ability to smile and stay focused, even in the midst of pivoting and changing. Your total career path is beyond inspiring. Keep staying true to who you are and creating in the ways that you've been called and equipped to. You, my friend, are created worthy. Thanks for tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. If anything in today's show resonated with you, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it also expands the impact, messages, and stories that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. If you're on social media, I want to personally invite you to continue the conversations about these important topics that we're talking about. You can find Created Worthy on both Instagram and Facebook by just typing in Created Worthy Podcast. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, you are created worthy.